Hello and welcome to today's class, wherein we are learning about the tactile sense. I'm very happy and glad that we are all gathered here for learning some of the important aspects of the child's development, that is, refinement of touch. See, what we have been believing and learning in Montessori is we believe that the senses are the gateways to the child's understanding of the world. And in that, touch is one of the first sense, right? A child develops. And it is considered to be as one of the most crucial one in building the child's intelligence, in building the child's concentration, and in building the child's awareness. Correct? So when we are working on that particular skills for our children, what's essential for us is to keep our children very much aware about how they are learning and what kind of an environment do we give, because that becomes one of the most crucial step in building the child's intelligence. Now in today's session we would focus on two aspects of touch. You can note down. The first one is related to our tactile sense, and the second one is related to our thermic sense. Tactile is a sense of touch, and thermic is when you are touching something, do you experience the temperatures also? And the third aspect of that we're going to see is related to the weight. When you touch any object, when you lift any object, do you experience the weight? So in case if you're working with weights, we consider that as the baric sense. So in today's session, we're going to touch base on the first two aspects. If we do have time, we would also start with the baric sense. Okay. Tactile sense, a sense of touch. Thermic sense, a sense of temperatures. And baric sense, a sense of weight. Okay. So what is tactile sense? If I'm referring or if I'm holding some texture or if I'm holding any object, the child should have the ability to feel the object. Yes, the child should have the ability to differentiate the textures when he's touching, whether the texture is smooth, whether it is rough, whether if I'm holding something, is it soft or hard, or is it anything in between? Correct? So when you start defining on all of that, and if a child starts to refine this, the child becomes much more observant. And precisely when you as teachers are working on vocabulary, it also sharpens the child's perception skills. This is the first thing that we're going to be working. Now, on the second part of it, when we start working on the thermic sense, you now work on feeling. When I touch something, how do you feel? Children, can you recognize the temperature? Can you see the temperature? No, we can't see the temperature, isn't it? But when we will be able to feel the temperature. Now, can my child recognize the temperature differences? If I'm holding anything, is it warm? Or is it cool? Or is it hot? Is it cold? Correct? So this skill of helping the child to differentiate temperatures is not only helping them to learn this lesson, but it is helping them to adjust to the practical life situation. Yes? When the weather is outside, it's cold, we try to put a sweater or we keep ourselves warm, isn't it? Right? So this is what it builds the sensory memory. If a child is unable to sense all of that, the child would not even know. So senses are really essential, guys, right? So to build our sensory memory, to help us to work on strengthening the ability of the child to compare and classify, we need to work on certain exercises at home and also at school. At school, it becomes your responsibility as teachers. When it is a school exercise, it depends on your curriculum. And since we are all learning the Montessori lessons, we do our lessons in practicing Montessori exercises. So what are the materials I use? To work on the tactile sense, this is the first material. It's called the touch boards. Please note down, first material for tactile sense is touch boards. Now, using touch boards, you can create your lesson plan. It's very easy. It's a hands-on exercise. This is what Dr. Montessori also said, like hand is the instrument of mind, right? Hand is the instrument of the hand. When every activity she designed so that the child gets the hands-on exercises. Child becomes engaging into that exercise. And now once they're really good doing this exercise at school, they can easily try some variations at home. They can find something very similar at nature also. So this is what we need to work on. Okay. So these are sensory rich exercises that you actually work in your classes. All right. So now let's deep dive into this particular lesson of touch boards. Now to help you to understand what a touch board is, it's a material this way. Okay. Now you can see that. Now what are the different colors you notice over here? We have one side
Brown and white.
creamish whitish color. On the other side, you see something brown, correct? Anything that's
Glittery brown.
darker here, it's got a different texture. It's slightly rough. When you touch it, it's slightly rough. So it's basically a wooden board on which we have mounted the sandpaper. It's a sandpaper. Now, when I'm putting my hand onto that sandpaper, or if I'm putting two of my fingers and I'm running through it, I get the ability to feel the texture, isn't it? Now, when I'm trying to work on that, are we not helping the child to refine the tactile sense? And the teacher says, yes, children, this is rough, this is smooth. Look at the second board or the first board. Here you have this is rough, this is smooth. You are able to differentiate that this is rough and this is smooth. Look at the next one. I have smooth here. I have rough here. I have smooth and rough. Smooth, rough. Smooth, rough. Smooth, rough. The child gets the differences. Now you need to run through the entire board with two of your fingers and you say smooth, rough. Let the child feel it. So this is the first exercise that we do in our touch boards. Now this comes with variations. This is a very simple first board, I could say, wherein you are able to work on this. As I mentioned, the vocabulary is basically, you can say this is rough, this is smooth, or you can say this is coarse, this is fine, right? So this helps me to work on the child's writing ability also, because the child becomes much more sensitive to hold, to touch and everything. So what did we work over here? It was basically how is the texture all about? So that is also helping me to develop my tactile discrimination. So the entire purpose of this exercise is not only to work on concentration and focus. Indirectly, we've also expand on vocabulary. We help the child to work on developing a tactile discrimination. These are the materials. So you got to give a detailed description about your materials. Your touch board one, the first board, is your rough and the smooth one. This is your first board. Okay, one side is smooth wood, the other side is the rough wood. Clear? Now the second board will have multiple strips of sandpapers with different grades. So basically these two are my board two. Okay, now if you see this one, okay, the board two, it is slightly all of the brown colors. That means I have mounted my entire board with strips of rough. This is the first strip. This is the second strip. This is the third strip, fourth strip, fifth strip. Now, each of the strips are also made up of different kind of roughness. That means I'm grading the roughness from a very fine coarse to coarse. And then in case if I'm taking this cream one, the third board over here, this will have from my smooth to smoothest. Again, I would have, that is my variation. Okay, so these two put together becomes my board two, touch board two. The third one is this one, wherein I would have the alternative strips to help my child to understand rough and smooth. Okay, these are the three variations we introduce it in our classes to children. One is the basic first one. The second one is with different kind of grading for roughness and smoothness. And the third one is an alternative strip. Once the child gets these experiences, now you can actually show your demonstration. So lay a mat, put the rough and smooth board onto the mat and just help the child how to work on that. Okay, this is how you do. You can run through two fingers and always say, this is smooth, this is rough. Invite the child, ask the child to feel it and ask them, how did you find it? How did you feel it? Do you feel it? Or do you find this is smooth? Or do you find this is rough? Ask the questions. You can always use your 3-period Montessori lessons to actually help your children to work on that. Okay. So that is one of our exercises that we would be able to work on. Now I'm going to show you the detail of my other board, the board 2, which had my rough and smooth, rough and smooth. You present this one. Then is what you can go with your other boards. Like, now did you see? You got the differences of how coarse it is, right? From giving you a good amount of gradations over here, the child is able to quickly grade now from rough to the rougher and the roughest. If the class is very quiet, if your child is very quiet, when you're running your fingers through that coarse kind of strips, you can still hear the sound. You can hear the sound if it's too rougher. Okay. Same goes with your smooth board as well. That ends over there. Now, how do I work on my extension? Because not everybody would get the opportunity to use the touch boards, right? In case if you don't have touch boards in your classes, what you can always do is like, you collect some objects from the nature or collect the objects which are very real. Okay, but it has to be real, no toys. Okay. Get some fabrics, get some shells, get some leaves, get a cotton ball. Okay. Ask a child to feel it and let them differentiate between how do they feel. Is it smooth? Is it rough? Okay. So these could all be our extensions and variations in our classes. And your presentation has to be very proper. It needs to be in a tray or you need to collect these objects in a basket. You can have labeling cards so that, the classification can be done accordingly. And you can also use the vocabulary. You can say that, a pebble. A pebble is smooth, a stone is rough. Okay. Try to use your words as much as possible. I can still go wrong. We do have error of control because when the child is unable to feel the textures, they go wrong. Sometimes visually also they go by that. Instead of touching it, they usually go by the vision and they say this might be rough or this might be smooth, right? So that is another error of control. An age group, 3.5, 4 years, you can actually introduce this material. Okay, that's our first exercise, which is called as your touch boards. Now you have another one. You have another one to work on this areas of senses. Like, when I say about our sensorial exercise for the touch tablets, so for the sense of touch, instead of the touch boards, you can also use something called as the touch tablets. Okay, so note down the second material that we would introduce in our classes are touch tablets. Here we go. Okay, let me adjust my camera. All right. Okay. The second material that we would be seeing for today is our touch tablets. Again, reinforcing on our sense of touch exercise. Okay. So we would be using the second one as touch tablets. It's the same thing. Like, whatever we had in our touch boards, now we are going to be using the same. Now, what's the entire purpose of this exercise? Again, to feel and to differentiate the textures of these touch tablets, whether they are smooth, whether it is rough, okay, or something which is in between. And the child would have got this skill because they would have already started another lesson using the touch boards as such. Okay, so let's go a little bit more in detail about this. Okay, so look at this. It's a wooden tablet. If you would like to know on how do we define, it's a wooden tablet. Now, did you see the colors? Colors are slightly different, right? So we should never go wrong by vision. That's the reason whenever you're introducing any touch-based exercises, you need to blindfold the child. So that is always better. Why do I do that? I want my child to discriminate the textures. Now, do I get these tablets in pairs? Yes. every tablet will be in pair. Too rough, too rougher, too roughest. Too smooth, too smoother, too smoothest. Now you would be able to shuffle all of them. Now you've got textures which is varying from very fine to coarse. Now one more difference that you need to work over here is like all these tablets are of the same size. So the child will not be able to judge by seeing. They have to feel it, they have to touch it, only then they would be able to differentiate. How do we do that? Spread it on the mat. Use your fingers or your palm. Let it run through. Let the child be able to differentiate. Okay. Now, when they're trying to work on this exercises, what happens? Do they get differences? Definitely, yes. Sometimes they do get differences in case if they have picked up a very coarse kind of a tablet. Very subtle differences if they get. It's like if it is very fine, they would not have much of a difference, right? So they will have to identify the tablets which are matching to the way they actually feel it. So usually this comes with two boxes. Your box one is basically for the rough. Okay. Your box two is for your fine. Okay. That is for your smooth textures. You lay them out and find out an equal pair. That's how it is. How do I prepare? Place the table with these two boxes. Help the child to sensitize their fingertips. So they have to first sensitize their fingertips and then they have to start working on it. I hope we are all clear with this, right? The presentation is very clear. Take the first tablet, feel it, compare it with the next one, see if it is matching or not matching. And you will continue until all the tablets are paired. And always remember to use the vocabulary. Is it rough? Is it smooth? Is it fine? Is it coarse? Or is it rougher? Is it smoother? That is very important. Now the games, what your book says is like matching from a distance. What is matching from a distance? Or matching to a point, it is a positive degree. Okay? Rough and smooth. Grading from an extreme, superlative degree. What is superlative degree to all the newcomers? Okay, so anytime that you match from a distance, that means to the point, we say. To the point. Say, for example, if I have to work on this, what is my objective? What am I trying to teach over here? I'm teaching whether this is rough or this is smooth, correct? So this is my main objective. So whenever they say match from a distance or match to the point, that means it is the first degree of exercise. So it is a positive degree. You're teaching only one concept. This is rough, this is smooth. Now if they say grade from midpoint, the third one, if you see here, now we would be able to start working on comparison. Yes, you're getting me, Mamta? So you say, okay, this is rough. This is smooth. Okay, I might have something even more smoother than this, right? So I can also teach smoother. I can also work on, oh, this is rougher. So I'm working on 4 other things. So that's midpoint. When you work on extreme, okay, that is our third one here. When you work on extreme, you work on what? On the superlative? Superlative, right? So you work on this is rough, this is smooth, and then you find out if it is rougher, if it is smoother, or you will also find out if it is
roughest and smoothest.
These will be my points. So you should never get confused when they ask you grade from midpoint, grade from extreme. So how do you grade this one? So you can say, oh, this is rough. This is rougher. Or I can say this is roughest. Right? So you were able to work on these 3 things. So that was really helpful for us actually to work on that. Now you're able to get that? Okay. So never go by the language what it has been given. So always it is to the point itself. Now comes matching to the environment. How do we match to the environment? You collect some of the objects and come, and then you should be able to match it. Correct? Okay. These are all smooth. These are all rough. And the language, as we know, it is Superlative, comparative, and the positive languages is what we need to be working with these exercises. Okay, that covers our touch tablets. So what were the two materials we used till now? We used our
Touch board and touch tablet.
Touch board and
touch tablets. And the third one that we are going to be using is called the fabrics. Okay, so we would be using another material to refine the child's sense of touch, and that's called the fabrics. Please note down. These are fabric materials. How beautiful it is. It looks very colorful. And fabrics are something which is like a big, yes, our children love to experience the fabrics in their classes. Now, looking at the material itself, now you know that they're paired, they're all in pairs. I have two green, I have two red, I have two yellow, I have two brown. But are all these fabrics the same? No, they're all different, right? So, in the fabrics, we are trying to learn that, any fabric can be of different textures. It can have different thicknesses. It can have different feel, right? So that's what we're going to be learning in our fabrics too. So again, this is our third Montessori material that we use so that the child gets the sense of touch. Now, what do we do here? When you give the fabric box to the child takes any of the fabric. They tend to feel the fabric. Okay? And they take another one. They felt this fabric. Now they would also feel the other one. Now, what is my child trying to do there? They felt the fabric. Now, don't you think that they are comparing how they are feeling? Are both of my fabrics the same? They start to compare. And once they feel that, oh, this one and this one is equal, I feel the same, we are trying to match the fabrics. Now, those would be the 3 exercises you got to do. You help the child to feel the fabric, you help the child to compare, and you help the child to match the different fabrics. So that's the simple exercises that we do. So what do? You need to collect fabrics which has various textures. Some can be smooth, some can be rough, some can be silky, woolly, coarse, soft, textured, right? So you collect all those pieces, but they all have to be of the same size. That's the preparation you do. But if you have the material, you get everything ready-made. Now, only the size should be there. It should be same. What about the textures? Textures should all be different.
Different.
The colors. Colors can also be different.
Colors different.
Right? We are not teaching here the shape of the cloth, the color of the cloth. No, we are not talking about anything. We are only talking about the textures here. That's the reason every material that you introduce in your classes is taught in isolation of a particular skill. You're only reinforcing one skill. So fabric box is used to teach only textures. The child should be able to feel and differentiate what kind of a texture it is. Now, how do we work on it? Or what do we do on that? Or are there any, or what all materials should I include in my fabric box? Okay. Now, before you work on that, the teacher understands, oh, this is my purpose. I have to help my child to get the tactile discrimination. I have to help them to work on observing how to have a gentle touch, how to build vocabulary, right? How to sensitize the fingertips. All that thing my teacher understands. And she also gives them this technique because now the child can close their eyes and they have to feel, they have to think about it. So indirectly, we are also reinforcing memory skills to the child. Right? When we close our eyes, we're just thinking. Our mind is not shut, but only the eyes are shut. And we are still thinking about something. So it's again encouraging and reinforcing of memory skills. So the teacher also works on that skills. So that's the purpose. We understood the purpose. Now, this material comes with multiple boxes in variations. The first box that we use is a simple box or a basic box, which most of the schools would have it. It will have 8 to 10 pairs of different kinds of fabrics. Now, these fabrics can be made with easily available materials. Like I can find cotton everywhere. I can find silk. We can find wool. We can find jute. Right? So anything that is easily available is put up into this box 1. Now, what is my child supposed to do? Touch every fabric, feel every fabric. That's the first thing. Now in the second box, I will bring some more materials, which is little coarse this time. Like, I can collect some denim fabrics, corduroy fabrics, burlap, right? Dotted Swiss. These are slightly coarse. They are little thicker. They might be little heavier, right? So we bring that into our box 2, which is little coarse. Now in box 3, to add variation, I'll bring even more fine materials like satin, chiffon, organza, chambray, right? I can bring those kinds of materials and I put them. So my material is already, I have my box 1 and 2 and 3. Now what do? I invite the child. I say, children, let's do a fabric box today. We bring the fabric box, we set it up on our table or a mat, we sit comfortably. What is a sitting position? The children can be seated in the semicircle, the teacher can sit here. And when you're demonstrating over here, okay, so you sit there. Now what do? Every fabric you take up, you feel the fabric and you say, oh, this is smooth and this is silk fabric, or this is rough, this is burlap, or this is denim, or this is jute, or this is felt, right? So you can give them the name of the fabric also. Now what happens? The teacher mixes all the pieces. She'll ask the child to close their eyes and she would ask the children to feel the fabrics with the fingertips. Now they are able to do that. Everybody is able to do that. Correct? So we blindfold the child and we ask them to match the textures. And then you ask them, what fabric is this? Oh, ma'am, this is satin. What fabric is this? Ma'am, this is organza. What fabric is this? This is jute. So that becomes my naming game. The child knew the fabric just by touching it. We are not visually seeing it. That's the main intention and the goal that we do have. This is how we do it. After the teacher mixes everything, the child will have to match the pair. At the beginning, you need not blindfold. At the beginning. Later, maybe after 1 or 2 sessions, the child can start working with the eyes closed. Okay? And let them match. You can ask them to close their eyes, but definitely there would be 1 or 2 students who would be opening their eyes, right? Who do not listen to the teacher's instructions so closely. So maybe they might open their eyes while doing it. That's okay. To avoid such things, you can always use a blindfold. Error of control is the child could not find the exact match, right? Or the child mismatched, or the child was not able to find it out. That is okay. Then what you do is like you bring contrast figures or contrast, what I could say, the cloth pieces. Extremely smooth, extremely rough you give them. So then they would be able to figure it out because it is very simple difference that they are able to get it, right? So they get the differences. Not only that, the thickness of the fabric also they would be able to feel. If it's organza or if it's like satin, it will be very soft. If it's jute or coir, it will be really thick, right? So they get that contrasting differences also of how these fabrics are felt. So these are the 3 simple exercises which goes with your tactile sense. Okay? All right. So that was the sense of touch, tactile sense exercises that we did. The touch boards, touch tablets, and the fabrics. Now we move to another one, which is our thermic sense. Now what is thermic sense?
Temperature.
Temperature, ma'am.
Right? Anything that is related to our temperatures are our thermic sense. So what could be our simple exercises that we could do is we use a material called thermic bottles. Okay? When you want to introduce temperatures to our children, like in our general classes, how do we introduce temperatures?
Hot and cold.
Hot and
Hot
cold.
and
Hot
cold.
and cold is what we would introduce. It's the same concept that we're going to be introducing, but we would be heating the water to different temperatures here. And we use a specific monossery material called the thermic bottles here. Now you could see that there are different bottles. Like if you ask me how many bottles, 8 bottles only. 4 pairs, 8 bottles. So that means my temperature should also be 4 different temperatures. Yes?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
It should be 4
To make
different
it clear.
temperatures that I'm going to be working on. So what do we do over here? Now, it's also a special part of this sense of touch. That's my temperatures. Now, thermic sense, or we call it as temperature sense, this refers to the ability, is my child able to feel? Is my child able to recognize? Is my child able to compare the different temperatures through what? Through my sense of skin, through my skin. Especially my hands, because I would be using my hands, and especially the fingertips. I would be using the fingertips to check the temperature. Okay, now these sense will help my child to make the sense of their environment. They would know if the water is enough warm to wash their hands. They wouldn't put their entire hand into a hot water, right? If it's warm only, they would wash their hands. When it is very hot, and if the chair is outside, the child knows the sun is really hot, or the child is feeling really hot, and if the chair is outside, they know if the chair is really hot. If it is really hot, they will wait for some time and only then they sit. Now, what if you give them a glass of milk? They know whether it is hot or cold and when to drink. So all these things are coming how? They're coming naturally. And Dr. Montessori also observed that the children naturally enjoy exploring temperature differences. Now, when you as teachers guide them with the right materials and activities, it could be teachers or it could be parents, we help them a little bit more to develop a refined awareness of hot, warm, cold, and the cold sensations. It's all about the sensations. Now, what are the materials we use? We use 2 materials for temperatures. The first one is what is listed here. That's called the thermic bottles. The second material for thermic sense is called the thermic tablets. Just like how we had our, what was the previous one that we did? Touch tablets. Similarly, we also have thermic tablets. We'll see that. Now, each of these 2 materials, it will hold heat differently. Okay. Now, our entire agenda of this exercise is you will allow the children to touch them. And now the child will have to compare whether it is warm or cool just by touching it and by feeling it, how they felt when they touched it. So what are the advantages? They have the ability to focus. They have the ability to classify. And they have the ability to remember the sensation. Right? Then later,
Vocabulary.
yes, vocabulary. Then later you see, if you want to do some nature-based exercises, what could be my nature-based exercises? How do I give it? Those are all the extensions that you can do it. But as far as the books are concerned, we do these 2 exercises, the thermic bottles. Now look at the thermic bottle. Okay. Now what did Montessori say? She said the children of 3 to 6 years, they have a very sensitive period. That's the reason we always tell them they have the absorbent mind, right? And they're too sensitive to refine their senses also. So when you do constructive exercises at that time, children will definitely have the ability to take everything. So as a thermic sense, they get the ability to detect and differentiate temperatures. So when a child is able to differentiate temperatures, it's not only physically the child is feeling the temperature, but biologically also, the child gets trained in the mind. When it is hot water, they know I shouldn't be touching it. They did not go and touch it. But intellectually, the child understands it is hot. When you have a hot pot, the child would not touch. Maybe once they would touch it. The second time, they wouldn't touch it. So there is an intellectual skill that is actually getting consciously trained. Correct? Agree? That was something
Yes,
that we believed. And to work on this in classes, she was thinking, how do we do this in classes? And I cannot give them a pot full of water and I cannot ask them to go put their hands into it. She said, okay, I will take some insulated containers to exercise the sensorial activities. And the child is now going to work on the temperatures. So she designed these thermic bottles, and we have to only differentiate if it is hot, is it warm, is it cool, or is it cold. These are the 4 variations that we're going to be learning. Now coming to the next part of it, to what degrees of temperature should I be heating the water? Now 2 bottles, that is 1 pair, I would keep it to the room temperature or the body temperature, 37 degree. Normal water I will pour. 1 bottle pair, I would have a slightly colder water. Okay, so slightly, I could say a little cold, 27 degrees. Then I have another 3rd pair to 17 degrees. It's really cold. And 4th bottle, I would warm it up a bit. Okay, it's a hot water, maybe 47 degree. I put these different temperatured water into each of the pairs, and I keep all those bottles into a tray. I also keep a small towel, and I get it to the child. Now, what is my child supposed to experience? The thermic sense. How do we do that? Thermic sense. Before, the child doesn't know you got something, right? Now, what should my teacher do? The teacher will first demonstrate how to hold the bottle, how to match, what is that they are able to feel it. So the teacher gives them that sensory discrimination, right? Now, once she starts with that, she would always begin by inviting the child. You got that mat, you got the table. Now you